Hello, I'm Shannon Eastman. I'm the host of the Inside Growth podcast, and I'm excited about this topic of conversation: trauma, business, and healing the 6-year-old. I think we need to have more of this conversation. I have Dr. Steve Fonso, who's joining us today. He approached me and wanted to talk about this openly. I think when you hear his exchange in a few minutes, you'll see the distinction. There's a distinction to be made between growing a practice. In his case, he has his own practice in Ontario. He's a doctor of chiropractic, definitely an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker. It's gotten a really interesting world that he gets to swim in. But I want to come back to this distinction. And the distinction is the childhood trauma showed up in his business in all sorts of ways, totally unbeknownst to him. Like most of us are unconscious that we're playing out these old patterns. But then there was this opportunity for him. He did some work with Dr. John DeMartini, and there was a shift instantaneously where through the process of healing childhood trauma, he was able to show up in his business differently, and how it expressed was different, and what he got to do was different. And I'm very interested in this subject matter. If you're listening and you're an expert in this subject matter, trauma in business, definitely get in touch. I want to talk to you. But this particular share that Dr. Steve brings to the Inside Growth podcast is a universal wound, a universal trauma. So it is my intention that you will be able to identify with what's being shared and explored here in this conversation, and possibly have your interest piqued as to what becomes available to us when old wounds are healed, resolved, addressed in some form. This is a topic we are going to keep talking about over the coming months as I interact with more and more businesses, more and more professionals who experience this but don't talk about it. So we are going to talk about it. Enjoy. Dr. Steve, I'm giving you a shout out again. Thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show. So generous with your time. And no doubt we will have you back for a third and a fourth. Dr. Steve, I'm really pleased to have you back on the show talking to us about trauma, business, the dark nights of the soul, and your personal experience, which kind of spans between age 6, when your parents were divorced and you perceived that your father was missing, through your life as a business owner, successful business owner, a doctor, a chiropractic clinician, and an extraordinary experience that you had about 25 years old on the top of a mountain in Denver. Welcome back. It's so good to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back.
Trauma, business, dark night of the soul. You had a 6-year-old experience that has stayed with you into your adult life. And you found some really cool tools and strategies and bodies of work that you engaged to explore that experience. I've invited you back to talk about this particular thing, business, trauma, dark night of the soul, but we can start anywhere you want. Kick it off when you're ready.
Well, just kind of dovetailing on my real awakening experience, where I recognized that there was no separation between my father and I in our own suffering, meaning that he suffered and I suffered equally and as drastically on that time that we separated when I was 6 years old. And I thought I was the only one suffering because, you know, you're kind of in an egocentric world as you're growing up and you think you're the only person in life, so to speak. And so I didn't consider that as I looked at him, whether I was visiting him or I could not appreciate at the time that he suffered and that he was suffering like I was suffering. And I couldn't have empathy for him. And I mean, empathy as though I see you, I feel you. We were separated, a father and his son, like that's a friggin' nightmare, and I couldn't appreciate that because I was in my own suffering about that. And I was angry about that. And, so when I was 28 and I had that awakening experience and the recognition of our connection, and just the tears of gratitude, and then the transformation that followed, that we started saying, I love you spontaneously, which was incredible to me. It didn't necessarily, although we were much more heart-centered in our relationship, it still didn't necessarily change the void that I had experienced from age 6, because part of me now was asking, well, where the hell were you? Like, well, we lost time. I lost experience with you. I didn't have a masculine role model. I love you, and I recognize you suffered like I suffered, and our hearts are on board. And also, damn it, I lost time with you. And that's not fair. And so that was still a piece that was hurting. And so when I started to reflect on that, I could see how that played in my business. Number one is, that separation had a tremendous impact on my value for family. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to fulfill that thing that my father didn't fulfill with me. I wanted to experience what a connected family felt like. And so unconsciously, because I wasn't aware of my highest values at the time, but unconsciously, I was looking to build a family and build a connected family. Now, how did that influence my business? Well, we had a family chiropractic business. I wrote a family book for parents. And so, I took care of a lot of kids, surprisingly at age 6, 7, and 8. I was drawn to working with kids in that age, helping them to clear their stress patterns, not knowing of the connection points between that. And so, unbeknownst to me, the separation at age 6, was really the kind of that dark night of the soul that set me on a mission unconsciously to fulfill that void through varying means, professionally and personally. I was determined to build a connected family. I had no idea why, but I clearly was. We homeschooled our kids, and I, committed to my wife at age 18. We got married at age mid-20s, and I was willing to, for that connected family, I was willing to sacrifice a lot of things in the teenage years for the pursuit of that connected family. And I had no idea why.
The trauma, I've been learning and reading and studying a lot of work by Gabor Mate. Are you familiar with Gabor Mate?
Yes.
And so this idea that childhood trauma, when it goes unhealed or unprocessed, it expresses in the adult life, but we're unconscious. We think it's normal. So you had created this world where family was at its core. And it was, I would say, like a driving need for you to complete that family-centric world for you at the time, which was being driven, and this would be DeMartini's word, the void that you perceived of having no family in your life at the time. Is that language that resonates? Is that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, just the little subtle nuances, I had my mom, and I had, but I perceived the disconnection of the family. I could perceive the amount of tension in there, the lack of connection, the guilts and the shames and the resentments and and just the degree of tension. You know, I was generally growing up when I was engaging in sports, and I generally take on leadership positions, and in those leadership positions, like being the pitcher in baseball or being the goalie in hockey, or I would take on these leadership positions. And as the team leader, I would be looking to change tension dynamics within that family. I would be looking to make sure that people were on the same page, making sure the teammates were working with each other. And so that void even extended into the void of connection, even stemmed into my leadership roles in sports, because I viewed that team as a family. And then it goes into business, where I view the business as a family. And so I still carry that. How do we connect? How do we refine? Oh, there's resentments, there's guilt, there's people that are irritated. Okay, how do we connect? And so my mind goes on this, my mind and my heart goes on this continued voyage of creating these connections in relationships and relationship dynamics, for sure. The one thing that I would say with John DeMartini, when I was introduced to him, is he did some great work with me on my father, and bringing to light that basically his process allowed me to see that I wasn't actually missing a father. In fact, what I was dreaming about as a father was actually in my life, just in forms that I couldn't realize. It was in the form of two grandfathers doing different things. It was in the form of two uncles that I really had great relationships with. It was with my grade 1 masculine teacher. So I had all these male figures where I thought that there was a void in my life of my father. And I remember John saying to me, you write down each thing that you think you missed of your father, and write those all down. Masculine leadership, a male role model, a male physical affection, etc. So I looked at all these things that I thought were missing, and John helped me to see that they weren't missing. And that brought so much appreciation for my life, for the people in my life, and to create and to see the vast interconnections that were already existing in my life. So that was another transformational moment. And that allowed me to build my business, because I was less attached to family and more able to build my business as a masculine leader, because there was no longer a void in that. I was able to be the masculine leader that I needed to be in my business and bring on the masculine essence for me to move things forward. And so that was a huge transformation for business. Yeah.
Wow. My hair is standing up. That last sentence or two is extraordinary, to see the relationship. I don't know if it's entanglement. I don't know what it is, but to see the correlation between a 6-year-old wound being addressed, healed, made whole to some degree in the adult of the 6-year-old, and how that has a direct shift in your business, your family, your client, your leadership. It's extraordinary. We have about a minute left. I wanted you to have it though. What are last words, last thoughts for someone who's listening right now, who's struggling in their business? They hit the ceiling. They don't necessarily want to go back and talk to their inner child. That's not what they're about. What are your words? What's your advice?
My advice right now that I'm working with people at this point in my professional career, my advice would be, and I work with business people often, so let's document what you perceive is missing. What do you think is lacking right now? And let's just go make sure that we see where that's existing in your life. It may be in forms that you're not seeing. It may be in a form of something that you perceive missing in your business might be developing in your family right now. And you're on a developmental evolutionary curve as a person. And so to be in your heart as a leader is important. And to be in your heart means you're appreciating what is. So whatever you think is distressing you and is missing right now, make sure that you can go and see where is that developing in your life right now. And it may be where you don't think it is, but it's probably in an area that needs a little more nurturing and a little bit more development. It's probably in those areas. And once you identify those areas and see that nothing's missing, your heart kicks in. And when your heart kicks in, you're your most clear leader. And that's what I would suggest for business leaders right now.
Thank you, Dr. Steve.
Thank you very much.
I'm Shannon Eastman, and thank you for listening to the Inside Growth podcast, InsideGrowthMinicon.com. I have a feeling that your story wants sharing, the story of going from head to heart. Who were you when you found out that that was something you wanted to do? What did you learn along the way, and who are you today because of that journey? Details are available on the website. If you're feeling the prompt, if you know that's you and your time has come, then I would love to hear from you. InsideGrowthMinicon.com.